Hey everyone, welcome to Legal Limelight. On the move today. My son tested positive for COVID. You guys know that drill. I literally just made a post about this the other day. That went viral about how kids are always sick and it's life. So in any event, we're doing this on the move today. Hey Karen, good to see you. Let me bring you up here. Karen, can you request to join? Oh, there you go.
Daniel, hi guys. Loved your post, Daniel. Daniel from Law Broker. I still have to make your video. I haven't
Hello.
forgot. Hi.
So how's your kid
How are
now?
you? I don't know. I was gonna try to do it at home, but it's a little chaotic inside right now.
It's just
So
a reminder you can do business anywhere, right?
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, COVID changed everything. But I didn't even have a chance to give an introduction for you. So today we have a super special guest, Karen Laos. Karen is an expert communicator. She's graced stages of many amazing companies, and she is really key on building up individuals' confidence in communication. Karen,
I
it's so
know.
nice to actually meet you.
Exactly. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Thank you. And I did not want to cancel again. I think I canceled before. Just
Uh,
everyone's always
it's
sick,
so hard.
apparently.
It's so hard. But it's a good reminder that these are like you can't I spoke at a women's conference yesterday, and one of the women spoke about how you can't plan bad days. Like you are you just you never know when they're going to come up, and we still have to navigate.
Yeah, it's so funny. You roll with it. Like it's expected, especially with small children who are always sick. It's like, all right, well, we'll just rotate and make it work and put an out of office on and let people know, like be a little bit gracious, which, most people are now, I think, but it's still hard. You have deadlines, there's
Right.
stuff that you need to get done. And maybe that's like a good way for us to start, right? So, like communicating with employers and other people, because there's so much like guilt and shame we
Yes.
have when, balancing everything. So, what are your thoughts on
Yes.
that? How we communicate
Well, I
when
think
things
the
just go
thing is
wrong?
to be honest and remember that we're all human, that people connect with other humans. It's the same thing when I'm coaching
Yeah.
people to speak on a stage, or if I'm coaching them to speak in an important meeting. We have to be remember that we are not robots, that nobody is going to connect with that. Nobody wants to connect with a robot. And it's the same thing that people understand. And what I find, which I'm sure you do as well, is that when we show that part of ourselves, whether you call it vulnerability or whether you call it just honesty with what's happening, people respect that. I think the
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge is when we don't set boundaries and we try to pretend that everything's perfect, and then we end up being resentful or we are walked over. And so that's such an important thing for women. And at the end of the day, it's about asking for what you want and being able to get it. And really, that's what I do. I help women speak up and ask for what they want.
Oh my, okay, so how do you do that? How do you teach people who haven't really thought about it before? Because all these concepts, it's like, okay, well, I communicate, I tell people things. We all have to communicate in daily life, but are there key principles and methods that you teach for people to really be
Yeah,
more intentional with
absolutely. Well,
communication?
first of all, the thing we have to think about is, in general, thinking now big picture, we have to think about the experience that we want people to create, that we are creating for people. What is the experience we want them to have? How do we want them to feel
Hmm.
about us and about the experience they had with us when they leave us? So, yeah, because most
That's
of us
so
don't think
interesting.
about that. And the biggest talk that I continue to get people to want to hear more about is leadership presence. Because I remember interviewing an executive vice president at Visa, asking her, how would you define executive presence? And she paused and then she said, I don't know, but I know it when I see it. And I think for most of us that's true, but we don't take that intentional step to think, what are they actually doing? And so what I love to teach women is how to do that, because if you don't know how to replicate it, how are you going to actually be the best version of yourself? Or you just walk around thinking, I don't know what passion means or charisma means, but I'm going to go for it. But we don't have a roadmap. And so that's where, if you think about the roadmap, for example, just one tip that I would offer right away is, so many women tend to ramble, and men do this too. But as a recovering rambler myself, what I always like to say is, here's what you do. You first have to have the emotional intelligence to be aware that you are rambling and that you might be on a tangent that's irrelevant. There are relevant tangents as well. But if you're on an irrelevant tangent and you realize it, stop and pause for a moment and say out loud, and my point is this. Yeah, because it helps you focus. It helps the audience go, oh, she has a point and she's getting to it. Because we have to be also good facilitators of other people's experience when they're with us. Because as you well know, when you're in a meeting, sometimes you don't have the best leaders of meetings. You're in a meeting and you're thinking, what is happening here? Why are they derailing this? Or they didn't even say the point. So that's another thing, is having that point up front and making sure that you start with that. Because that's the other thing that I see a lot of the times, is people tend to just start talking without saying, hey, the reason we're here today is this. And then all the other details will then have a framework. But if we just start spewing details, then we're not going to come across as credible. We're going to be confusing for people. And definitely we're not going to have the credibility that we walked in there with, that we are basically, we're not demonstrating it. I already said credibility.
That is amazing. And I'm such like a note taker. So if I were taking notes, so I'm taking mental notes, the like really two great takeaways that are practical would be, always start with saying what you're about to speak about and the purpose, and always end with saying,
yes,
my point is blank.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes,
those are little hacks.
Exactly. Well, then the other one that happens, and this is such prime real estate, when you're in the beginning of a meeting and the person that's there is leading it and says, okay, who wants to start? Whether it's a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting, normally it's total crickets. It's the same as a networking event. You get into a small group and somebody says, okay, everybody, give an introduction. Generally, most people don't want to go first. So I always tell people, you go first. You be the thought leader. You also then won't be sitting there wondering for the next 15, 20 minutes or hour that the meeting is happening, that you wish you had said what the other person had said, because that's really what you wanted to say. But now it's been said more than once. So you're not sure what you can add. And we've got to be heard and get our voices out there if we want to show who we are and our credibility.
I love that. So jump in early, get your opinion out. And what about for people who, are constantly taught, like for my lawyers, right? Let's give an example for lawyers, because a lot of lawyers watch the show. So our job is to be the counselor. We're supposed to be the voice of reason and give the clients options and a recommendation. But at times it's hard to communicate with a client, especially because it's very detailed and technical legal terms. And so I've kind of like figured out hacks for myself. But what advice do you, and we can talk about those later, but what advice do you give to people who feel that they struggle with presenting a finding or being persuasive, especially as lawyers?
As far as how to be persuasive when you're giving, like,
for their clients, and like really dealing with the technical terms.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for them who struggle with this and just communicating to someone who's
absolutely.
Not
and this
aware?
Applies to anybody that has a lot of detailed information that they need to deliver. And so the first thing you've got to
Yes.
always think about is, what does your audience care about? We have to think about what matters to them. If we can look at it through the lens of our audience. Okay.
Money.
Yes.
Money, budget,
Yeah.
how much am I spending? What am I getting?
Exactly.
ROI.
Well, then it's thinking about, okay, what is the bottom line here? And even starting with that, hey, before I go into any detail, here's the bottom line that you need to know that we're going to cover during this meeting. And then I'll give you all the details. And even making light of it, of, okay, I'm going to get into a little lawyer speak coming up here, but the main thing for you to know is this. And then let's drive through the detail. So when you can acknowledge that in and of itself, it helps people relate to you, because right away they see you as caring about them. And if we think about just humanity in general, one of the best pieces of advice that I got as a kid was, somebody said, always picture everybody with a sign above their head that says, make me feel important. And I just love that, because if people feel like you care about them, then they're going to listen to you more. And so one of the other things to keep in mind that is such an issue for a lot of people, especially in great detail, but we all have this curse, the curse of knowledge. And really defined as, the more expert you are in your field, the harder it is to see things through the lens of your audience. And I remember specifically, if you or anybody listening has ever had a physical injury, this is a great example of that curse of knowledge, because I remember going in once, I fractured something in my ankle. I didn't know what it was. And the doctor talked for about 5 minutes about the calcaneus. And I finally stopped him and I said, what the heck is a calcaneus? And he said, oh, it's your heel bone. Like, duh, you should have known that. So it happens to all of us. We all have jargon and buzzwords that get in the way of our message getting out. So we've got to keep in mind, keep it simple. And if you confuse people, you're going to lose them.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really glad we talked about that, because, oh my gosh, it's, I'm at the point in my life where if someone is speaking to me and they're not making sense because it's so technical, and, I used to think that it was, wow, that person's so smart.
This person either has an ego issue, or they're a really, really bad communicator.
Yes.
Really bad communicator. Because it's our job. And the reason why, I'm really glad you came on, because communication, it's almost like interpretation for lawyers, right? Like, we're in the weeds. We have to understand the law, and then we convey it in a way that the client understands. And I found that a lot of lawyers will speak to clients as if they're other lawyers, and the clients may not be like you, Karen, who say, wait, what is that term? They may just go with it, and then they're not listening. So how do you get around that, right? Is there this middle ground approach where maybe it is, like you said, you just summarize it at the beginning and then go into details at
That's
the end?
really the
That's
best
probably
thing. Or if you think about it from a U.S. military term, BLUF, B-L-U-F, bottom line up front. And even I do think that, frankly, the simpler the better. So even saying, there's nothing wrong with using the same thing that we've used before for ages. Bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Here's what I know you care most about, client X. It's this. Let's now talk about how we came to that, or let's talk about the evidence that connects back to that. Something like that.
Oh my God. I love that. And you just gave so many practical tips that are relevant for a lot of people. But if anyone here wants to become an expert and master their communication, how can they work with you?
I do.
Do you programs?
Yes.
Do you coach?
I have two things. Well, first of all, as far as free resources, I have a podcast called Ignite Your Confidence. I have an IG Live show like you. Mine is on Tuesday nights, and it's called The Confidence Corner. But as far as working with me, I've got a group coaching program called Speak with Confidence, and I run it twice a year for 6 weeks. And it's a very intimate group, 5 people. So you can apply for that now, if anybody who'd like. And I actually have one person that dropped out for yesterday's start date. So if anybody wants to act fast, you can join tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern if you pay today. So feel free to DM me. And then I've also got one-on-one coaching services. Specifically, I coach all folks, all people, but I definitely have a heart for women, because that is really my heart as well, because it took me too long to use my voice. And once I found it and said, I got to use this and leverage it, I want every woman to be free, because freedom is amazing. And that's what happened to me in my story.
I'm so glad. I'm so happy that that happened for you. And we'll have to have you back on and tell us more about your story. But where's the best?
Yes,
what's the best
thank you.
place that people can connect with
KarenLaos.com.
you?
It's my website. Or, of course, for those of you listening here on IG or watching, you can DM me. That is absolutely great. And my website is KarenLaos.com.
Amazing, Karen.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for
Francesca.
coming on. Thanks for your patience as we
I hope your little
this
one is
outside
better
today.
Beautiful view. I feel like I took a walk.
Yeah, he's in good spirits. He's in good spirits, which is great. But thank you again. We will be in touch, and thank you everyone for coming on the show. We're here every Thursday at 1 o'clock
right.
Eastern Standard Time.
Bye.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.